Five Nights at Freddy's 5 is the worst FNAF game ever released. It's terrible.
What am I supposed to do? There's no mask.
Just one day after being released on Gamejolt, the game was quickly taken down by series creator Scott Cawthon because you can't call your fan game Five Nights at Freddy's 5. Of course, Scott didn't want the aspiring developer's efforts to go to waste, and he reached out explaining that the only problem was the game's name. If he changed it, he could put it back on Gamejolt. However, Scott wouldn't receive a reply from the game's developer, but rather his father, who explained that tragically, his son had passed away mere days earlier. I had been searching for a copy of the game for months, but after finally getting my hands on it and growing bored only a few minutes into night 1, I went to close the program, only to discover what Five Nights at Freddy's 5 actually was.
Huh? What?
Looks like someone wasn't ready for Freddy to come to the party.
At first glance, the hilariously named Five Nights at Freddy's 5 was really nothing special. It looked like just another debatably enhanced remake of FNAF 2, just without any story or new mechanics or half of the animatronics that are supposed to be there. What's strange though is that upon beating the first night, the game just loops. Night 1 starts over. There's apparently no night 2. For all intents and purposes, FNAF 5 played like a demo of a bad fan game, and one could easily be fooled into thinking that that's all it was. Some teenagers' first attempt at making a game upon learning Click Team Fusion. Growing bored and wanting to react to Baddington's new VHS tape for my stream, I pressed Alt F4 to close the program, only to be greeted with someone else's desktop. Whoever's computer this is working on a FNAF fan game. This fan game, the one we were just playing. However, just a few moments later, they're startled by a noise coming from outside their window. We witness what I can only presume is a nightmare that the developer of the game experienced. It seems that they've been so focused on finishing FNAF 5, they're starting to hallucinate or something. Exiting their bed, the developer walks to their desk and continues to work on the game, all day. Before he knows it, it's dark out. Once there was a guy who hated puppies and kittens, and he didn't subscribe to Theft King, and then he died. If you don't subscribe to Theft King, you will die. Subscribe to Theft King. And just like that, we had reached night 2. The second night's gameplay is more of the same. I don't think the difficulty increased at all compared to night 1. However, once again, unlike every other FNAF game, reaching 6 AM doesn't progress us to night 3, instead looping us back to the start of night 2. I pressed Alt F4 again, hoping it might trigger another scene, but this time it actually closed the game and took me back to my desktop. Disappointed, I went to relaunch the game, but when I hovered over the continue button, Once again, we see the developer in their bedroom at night as they continue to work on the game. Nervously, they glance to the window, but unlike the prior night, nothing seems to be present in their room. Looking up, the developer finds themselves in the FNAF 2 office, the same office that was on their computer's display just moments ago. As they cautiously walk into the hallway, they hear a noise coming from the east vent. Once again, they find themselves back in their bedroom. Just another bad dream, I guess. Have you ever had a dream that took place in the exact same room you were sleeping? It's really unsettling. One second, I'm in this surreal, dreamlike version of my bedroom, yet the next moment, I'm awake. It's morning, but I'm in the exact same place I was when I was dreaming. I set up my dad's old camera on my nightstand to film myself, like the dude from Marble Hornets. Disturbed by the uncanny nature of these nightmares, the developer began recording themselves 24/7, trying to establish whether or not the entities that stalked them each night were real. Like the dude from Marble Hornets.
Right now.
At this point, the game opened up a browser window before promptly crashing. I was taken to a Google Drive page with a zip file called Don't. This was tremendously sketchy, but I downloaded it anyway, cause YOLO. I would later realize that this was probably a workaround to circumvent the 4GB limit of ClickTeam's 32-bit architecture. Upon launching the new executable, we're taken straight to night 3. Once again, it's more of the same crappy FNAF 2 remake, albeit with even more spooky stuff going on in the background. It's not hard or fun, but at this point it was becoming clear that surviving until 6 AM was not the goal in this game. I cycled through night 3 several times, struggling to figure out how to progress. The prior tricks of closing and reopening the game didn't do anything this time around, and I was starting to get frustrated. Nearing my wit's end, it was at that moment that someone in chat asked if I had tried CD+. For those unaware, the first few FNAF games have secret debug commands that developer Scott Cawthon left in the game. Most famously, if you hold down the C, D, and plus key on the numpad while your cursor is over the poster's honkable Freddy nose, 6 AM will immediately trigger, progressing the game to the following night. I hadn't tried this, and sure enough, upon entering the command,
Wake up! You need to come with me.
I spent an hour on night 4. I could not figure out how to progress. Neither CD+, nor Alt F4, nor any of the other tricks worked, and I looped through the night over 10 times. It didn't help that the gameplay is so mindlessly boring, you basically had to try to die. It's actually good that this game is so easy, because otherwise it would be so frustrating to try to figure this out. You know what, forget it, let's just go watch the Baddington tape. Yeah, Foxy, you can kill me. Come on. And that was it. You had to die. And FNAF 5's pathetic difficulty meant that nearly every player who reached this point would be able to fend off the animatronics indefinitely. Only by allowing yourself to get jump scared and triggering a game over was the game's climax revealed. Just like the prior tapes, the scene opens with the developer putting the finishing touches on FNAF 5, when suddenly, rising from their desk, they find that they're no longer in their bedroom, but instead sitting at the counter of Fredbear's family diner. Nervously, they approach the stage where Fredbear and Spring Bonnie await.
Hey, there he is, the birthday boy himself. Looks like someone wasn't ready for Freddy to come to the party.